we're gonna have either a Detroit Lions team or a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in the NFC Championship game. Could anyone have predicted that?
No,
I think
I
there
think
was some optimism with Lions people earlier in the season, but I don't know if they like fully bought in to like that could really happen. But it's gonna happen. Either the Lions or the Bucs are in.
the story of this game obviously is the Eagles and their downfall, but it really should be Baker Mayfield and his overcoming and his redemption and the fact that multiple teams shield him out. I think there's a picture going around of Baker on the scout team with his hand in the dirt being the defensive tackle for the
Last
fucking
season,
scout team with the Panthers. So to go from that to 1 year later, taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back to the playoffs, winning a playoff game against the Eagles. Awesome story.
in a team where people gave up on them because Tom Brady couldn't do it again with them, and they wrote them off like, yeah, Todd Bowles is gonna get fired this year. This team's gonna suck with Baker. Like maybe they'll try Kyle Trask and see what can happen. And he looks amazing. Now they got it together. They beat an Eagles team that a lot of people thought were gonna go back to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, and I think preseason we were expecting the Bucs to be bad, this to be a bridge year, them to tank and pick a quarterback and fire Todd Bowles. None of that happened. I think it surprised everybody. And now you're looking at it and you're like, damn, all right. Well, Todd Bowles has been an NFL head coach for a really long time. His defense looked awesome. Philadelphia Eagles had no answers for it. They just couldn't beat the blitz for some reason. But Todd Bowles looks like a genius. Baker Mayfield comes out and is a true team leader. And it might have just been a different voice in the room is what this team needed. And because we were looking at Tom, they showed the graphic of Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady's numbers last year. And Baker had pretty similar numbers. Tom actually had more yardage and more touchdowns, but it was like, damn, actually, Tom Brady was pretty good last year.
Yeah.
But it might just be sometimes you just need a different voice. When you know, like the guy, like if you had a manager and he was about to retire at the end of the month, you're like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna coast too. Like, you know what I
And
mean?
you got to remember they were coming off the Super Bowl win too, so it was a little we partied, we're taking it easy a little bit. We could turn it on when we can, and then you couldn't turn it on.
Yeah.
And now this year it's like a get right, get back, get in there. And I think it was, yeah, this team has talent, but is Baker really a franchise guy? And it turns out Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback and he's going to get major paid this offseason and he deserves it. I mean, he's if you look back on his career now, seeing what he's doing, it's just like the disrespect has been crazy.
Yeah. The Browns told the media that they were trading Baker Mayfield or getting rid of him or like they cut him, right? Didn't they cut him or they trade him?
I think they traded him.
I want to say they cut him. But either way, they gave up on Baker. They said, we need an adult in the room
He was traded
and got rid of him. What did they trade him for?
for, it just says a future draft pick. For a conditional draft pick, and they paid part of his salary. They paid 10 mil of his salary to get him off there.
Golly, that's ridiculous. And they're rolling with Deshaun Watson. So that's all to show you like about the Browns. But yeah, Baker, awesome.
For a 4th or 5th round pick in 2024.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, moving on to the Eagles though, complete fall apart. 1-6 down the stretch after they had the 1 seed on lock for most of the season. They lose a couple key games. They lose. Jason Kelsey retires. Hell of a career, but he's gone now. I don't think the tush push is ever going to be the same without him. There's no way they're going to be able to do as successfully. Darius Slay gets injured at the end of that game. He's another old player. Jalen Hurts, he's been injured. Nick Sirianni, he's on the chopping block. Everyone's what's that stat you told me about their screen passes this year?
Oh, I'll have to look it up. But it was
Yeah,
like they did over 600 screen passes this year for like a negative 200-yard total or something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. And I think someone I saw someone comment, and I think this kind of highlights what their offense was by the end. That people just figured out how to cover the same 5 plays that the Eagles call,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what the offense looked like a lot of time. It's like run up the middle, run outside, throw it deep, throw it to that side, and like that's all they're gonna call. And it really fell apart. It's crazy how much it fell apart at the end there.
Okay, so here's the stat. The Eagles ran 690 screen passes for a total of negative 26 yards.
That's crazy.
That's pretty wild, dude. So, I mean, the play calling was just stagnant. You had to switch over your defensive coordinator halfway through the year. You should have switched over your offensive coordinator, but I mean, we've seen in his first year, Nick Sirianni got the play calling taken away from him pretty much. How he was like, nah, we're not doing that. So what do you do from here? Do you fire both of these, the Sean Desai and Johnson on the offensive side? Do you fire all three and Matt Patricia's gone too? Like, what do you do to make this better? Because it didn't work on both sides. We can blame the defense, but Jalen Hurts looked fucking bad. This offense looked fucking bad. They just couldn't score. As soon as the Bucs went up by 2 scores, we were like, that's game.
Yeah.
That's how inept this Eagles offense was, which was a complete 180 from the from last year.
And from the first touchdown of the Bucs, that secondary looked like they didn't want to be there. They were not trying to tackle. They were not even running full speed. There was some touchdowns that the Bucs got that I was like, these guys are just jogging out here. They're letting them score because they don't believe they're done. They checked out.
The Trey Palmer touchdown specifically, like where he
Yes.
just looks like he's running in a video game and everyone is just running in slow motion behind him.
Yeah, and then he's like cuts back and everyone's kind of like, "Oh yeah, there he goes." Like,
Yeah.
and I know the secondary is really bad for the Eagles. But do you know what makes secondaries not look so bad? The defensive line. Like that defensive line has guys on there that should be making that secondary look like at least top 15 in the league. Like when your defensive line has that much talent, they should be getting to the quarterback to causing interceptions, causing bad throws. And the D line just looks like they're not getting it done either. And the linebacking core is really bad too. So I up and down, they have the talent, but for some reason they're just not performing.
See, that's where I could see a difference. Like, yeah, the D line is good, but it's not just the secondary, it's the linebacking core. And if you have both of the units behind you poor, you're not going to be able to get to the quarterback. And even if you can, how long do you have before the quarterback releases? You know what I mean? So there's not a whole lot you can do. It's not like you're going to be able to be a sack merchant and just like, oh yeah, I'm going to tear this up. When they're just running quicker plays, then what you can do?
Yeah. But we've seen that the 49ers strategy for a few years was we're going to make a good D line and we're going to get minimum pay secondary and we're going to hope that they hold up.
But we've
And
always had good linebacking cores.
yeah, and that's the difference. That's one of the keys. But I think all around though, that defense just not performing on. They're getting can't stop the rush defense. The rush offense. That was one of the main game plans against them. And then you can't stop the pass. So like, what are you doing? I I just think at this point your cap and like Jalen Hurts contract, you have to run it back, and maybe you just do it under the facade of like, listen, we were all banged up. We had a lot of injuries. We're healthy now. Let's get back to it. And you just hope that you hold it together for next year.
I don't know. Is Jalen Hurts is going to be a problem. Jalen Hurts is going to be a problem for this Philadelphia Eagles team. That number is only going to grow up throughout these years. It's going to balloon up. What are they going to do? Because if he's not going to perform like an MVP caliber quarterback, there's no point. Like, he needs to start elevating people. And like, you can tell visibly, even throughout, like, not just this game, but throughout the season, Philadelphia Eagles players were fucking livid. They were pissed off at Jalen Hurts specifically. AJ Brown would blow up at him. Devontae Smith would blow up at him. In this game, Dallas Goedert was fucking heated at him on the sidelines. So you just can't have shit like that. Like, you need to be everyone bought in on this guy. And I don't know if everyone is 100% bought in.
I think it really hurt him this year that all the Eagles toughed it out in the regular season and didn't miss any games really. When look at the 49ers. Trent Williams sat, Debo sat, and they took a couple L's. And they thought, you know what? We're going to be there at the end, though. And the Eagles just kept going until they broke down. And I think that's what I was saying earlier in the season. Like, they need a game where they just say, fuck it. You guys take this win. We're going to rest our guys for the whole second half. Like, we got to get healthy. And they just not – they didn't get healthy and then the year. And that's, I think, really what wore them down.